You think you know a healed narcissist when you see one? Think again. Most people imagine someone who finally learned empathy, who apologizes with tears in their eyes, who became kind and vulnerable, but the truth will turn your stomach inside out. A truly transformed narcissist looks nothing like what they show you in beige-colored therapy offices or self-help books. They don't become a saint. They don't become your best friend. And brace yourself, because this goes against everything you've been taught. They might become even more dangerous than before. Not in the destructive way you're imagining, but in a way nobody warned you about. Carl Jung knew this. He understood that when shadow meets light, the result isn't a sugar-coated rainbow. It's something far more unsettling, more real, more human. Something society prefers not to see. In this video, you're going to discover what really happens when a narcissist heals. And you'll realize that everything you believed about it was wrong. The shattered mirror. When the mask cracks for good, something breaks inside that cannot be glued back together. Not in the way you break a glass and sweep up the pieces. This is different. Imagine spending your entire life believing you were the reflection in the mirror, only to discover you were standing on the wrong side of it all along. The person staring back was never you. It was a construct. A beautiful, terrible, necessary lie that kept you breathing when breathing felt impossible. When a narcissist begins to heal, the first thing that happens is not enlightenment. It is devastation. The grandiose self collapses like a building imploding from within. Everything they used to hold as truth becomes dust. The power they felt, the superiority, the endless need to be seen and validated, it all crumbles. And underneath, a void so massive it could swallow galaxies. This is not the kind of pain that makes you cry. This is the kind that makes you question if you ever existed at all. Jung called this the encounter with the shadow. But for someone who built their entire identity on avoiding that shadow, the encounter is not a gentle meeting. It is a collision. A head-on crash with the parts of themselves they buried so deep, they forgot they were even there. Shame lives in that place. Not the shame of doing something wrong, the shame of being fundamentally cosmically flawed, of having needed so desperately to be special because feeling ordinary meant feeling like nothing. Here is where people get it wrong. They think healing means the narcissist suddenly feels bad about what they did to others. But that comes later, if it comes at all. First, they have to survive the freefall of losing themselves. The mask was not just a tool, it was their face. And now the face is gone. What is left is raw, exposed. A wound walking around pretending to be a person. You cannot fake your way through this stage. The old tricks stop working. Charm becomes exhausting. Manipulation feels hollow. The supply they used to crave from others tastes like poison now. Because deep down, in a place they can finally access, they know it was never real. None of it was real. Every compliment was a band-aid on a gunshot wound. Every conquest was just another way to run from the emptiness. This is the point where most people stop. They cannot handle what they find when the mirror shatters. So they rebuild the mask, make it stronger, shinier, more convincing. They go back to the old patterns because the alternative is unbearable. But for those who stay in the wreckage, who sit in the broken glass and let it cut them, something else begins to happen. Not healing yet, not even close. Just the faint, terrifying possibility that maybe, just maybe, there is something real beneath all the performance. Something that does not need to be worshipped to exist. And that realization is more frightening than anything they have ever faced. The shadow. Nobody wants to see. Most people talk about shadow work like it's a weekend workshop. Light a candle. Journal about your trauma. Feel your feelings. And boom, you're integrated. Healed. Whole. But what happens when your shadow is not just anger or sadness? What happens when your shadow is the fact that you spent decades using people like tools, discarding them when they stopped serving you and feeling absolutely nothing while you did it? A narcissist's shadow is not pretty. It does not fit neatly into therapeutic frameworks. It is the part that enjoyed watching someone beg for their attention, the part that felt a surge of power when they made someone cry, the part that calculated every interaction like a chess game where other people were just pieces to move around. And when they finally look at this part, when they really see it, the instinct is to vomit, to deny, to say that was not me. I was hurt. I was traumatized. I did not know what I was doing. But Jung would say otherwise. He would say that shadow is you. Not the whole you, but a piece that must be acknowledged if you ever want to be real. You cannot cut it out. You cannot apologize it away. You have to sit with the fact that, yes, you were capable of cruelty. Yes, you felt nothing when you should have felt everything. Yes, you are the villain in someone else's story, and you earned that role. This is where the healing narcissist does something unexpected. They stop running, not because they are noble, not because they found God or read the right book. They stop running because they are too tired to keep going. The shadow catches up, and instead of destroying them, it does something worse. It reveals the truth, that the cruelty was not strength. It was terror, that the coldness was not power. It was a desperate attempt to feel nothing because feeling everything would have killed them. When you integrate your shadow, you do not become good. You become honest. You stop pretending you are above the darkness. You admit it lives in you. You learn to hold it without letting it drive. And this creates a person who is deeply uncomfortable to be around, because they no longer perform innocence. They do not smile to make you feel safe. They do not soften their truth to protect your feelings. They exist in a space between monster and saint, and most people cannot handle that ambiguity. Society wants reformed villains to grovel, to spend the rest of their lives atoning, wearing their guilt like a badge. But a healed narcissist does not do that. They acknowledge what they were without collapsing into it. They own the shadow without becoming it. And that makes people angrier than if they had just stayed broken. Because it forces everyone else to look at their own shadows, to ask themselves what they are capable of when no one is watching, and nobody wants to answer that question. The silence that scares more than words. You expect explosions, drama, the big apology tour where they visit everyone they hurt and beg for forgiveness. But that is not what happens. What happens is silence. Not the sulking kind, not the punishment kind, a different silence. The kind that feels like someone turned off a machine that has been running your entire life and you did not even know it was there until it stopped. A narcissist in the early stages of transformation stops talking. Not because they are hiding, because they finally realize they have nothing to say. For years, maybe decades, their words were weapons or shields. Every sentence was designed to impress, manipulate, defend, or distract. They talked to fill space, to control the narrative, to make sure you saw them the way they needed to be seen. And now, when they open their mouth, the words feel fake before they even come out. So they close it. They wait. They listen, maybe for the first time ever. This silence terrifies people, because we are trained to believe that communication fixes everything, that talking through problems is how you heal relationships. But what do you do when the person across from you has stopped playing the game entirely? When they no longer defend themselves, no longer argue, no longer try to convince you they have changed? They just sit there, present but unreachable, calm in a way that feels wrong. Jung understood that sometimes the psyche needs to go underground, that transformation does not happen in the light of conversation. It happens in the dark, quiet places where no one is watching, where there is no audience to perform for. The healed narcissist retreats into this space not because they are avoiding accountability, because they are finally meeting themselves without the distortion of other people's reactions. But here is the part that makes people uncomfortable. This silence is not humble. It is not meek. There is a weight to it, a presence. The person who emerges from this quiet is not softer. They are denser, more solid, less willing to bend to social expectations. They will not rush to comfort you when you are upset by their past actions. They will not perform remorse on your timeline. They have made peace with being unforgiven, and that peace is more unsettling than any angry outburst ever was. People mistake this for lack of empathy, for continued narcissism. But it is actually the opposite. It is the first time they are real enough to let you have your feelings without trying to manage them, to let you be angry without needing to fix it, to accept that some bridges burned for good reasons and should stay burned. That silence holds more truth than 1,000 apologies ever could. It says, I see what I did, and I cannot undo it, and I will not insult you by pretending words can make it right. And that honesty, that refusal to perform redemption, is what makes people want to break the silence themselves, to force a reaction, to make the narcissist go back to being the villain they understand. Because this new version, this quiet one, does not fit into any category. They know cold empathy. The paradox. Nobody explains. They finally develop empathy. This is supposed to be the turning point, the moment where everything gets better, where the narcissist transforms into a caring, warm human being who feels your pain and rushes to make things right. Except that is not what empathy looks like when it grows in someone who spent their whole life without it. It comes in cold, clinical, accurate, but unsettling. A healed narcissist can read you now. They see your wounds, your patterns, your defenses. They understand exactly why you react the way you do. They can trace your pain back to its source with surgical precision, but they do not cry with you. They do not hold your hand and tell you everything will be okay. They observe. They acknowledge. They might even help. But there is a distance to it that feels almost inhuman. This is because empathy for them is not an emotion. It is a skill they had to learn from scratch. Like someone who goes deaf and then gets a cochlear implant. They can hear now, but it does not sound the same as it does for people who never lost their hearing. They are processing emotional information through a different system. One that was built late, with effort, with conscious intention, rather than natural development. Jung would recognize this as the integrated shadow expressing itself through empathy. The narcissist who healed did not erase their analytical nature. They redirected it. The same mind that used to calculate how to manipulate you now calculates how to understand you. The result is empathy without warmth, compassion without comfort. They care, but in a way that feels more like a doctor examining a wound than a friend offering a shoulder to cry on. And this drives people crazy, because we want our reformed villains to overflow with feeling, to be so moved by their newfound awareness that they become walking empathy machines. But that is a fantasy. Real transformation does not make you into someone else. It makes you into a more honest version of who you already are. The narcissist was always calculating. Now they just calculate different things. Here is the truly uncomfortable part. This cold empathy can be more effective than the warm kind, because it is not clouded by emotional reaction. They can see what you need, even when you cannot. They can make decisions that help you in the long run, even when it hurts in the moment. They do not enable. They do not coddle. They see you clearly, and sometimes that clarity is the last thing you want. You want someone to agree that you were right, that you were wronged, that you deserve sympathy. Instead, they show you the pattern you keep repeating, the way you contribute to your own suffering, and they do it without malice. which somehow makes it worse. This is empathy stripped of its social performance. No comforting lies, no reassuring platitudes, just the cold, hard truth delivered by someone who finally learned to see beyond themselves. And if you are not ready for that level of honesty, their empathy will feel like the cruelest thing they ever did to you. The domesticated monster still has fangs. You cannot remove the teeth. This is the part nobody wants to admit. The narcissist who heals does not become harmless. They do not turn into a gentle soul who would never hurt anyone again. The capacity for destruction is still there. The difference is they are no longer unconscious of it. They know exactly what they are capable of, and they choose not to do it. Most of the time. Think about what made them dangerous in the first place. The ability to read people, to find weaknesses, to manipulate situations to their advantage, to turn charm on and off like a switch, to feel nothing when cutting someone out of their life. These are not bugs in the system. They are features. And healing does not delete features. It adds awareness, self-control, intention. But the tools are still in the toolbox. A transformed narcissist is someone who could ruin you but chooses not to. And you can feel that choice. It hovers in the air between you. There is a moment when you push them or test them or try to manipulate them back, where you see something flicker behind their eyes. A calculation, a consideration, the old them weighing options. And then they choose differently. They walk away. They set a boundary. They refuse to engage. But for a second, just a second, you saw the monster. Still there, still awake, just leashed. And here is why this matters. Because a person who has integrated their darkness is more powerful than some are. This is what integration actually means. Not killing the parts of you that society deems unacceptable. Learning to coexist with them. The healed narcissist has made peace with their capacity for cruelty. They do not pretend it does not exist. They do not bury it under affirmations and therapy speak. They acknowledge it, respect it, and keep it on a very short leash. But it is still there, waiting. And here is why this matters. Because a person who has integrated their darkness is more powerful than someone who pretends they do not have any. They understand human nature at a level most people never reach. They see through social games because they invented half of them. They cannot be manipulated because they know all the tricks. They set boundaries like steel walls because they finally understand where they end and you begin. They are not nice. Nice is a performance. They are real, and real is much more dangerous than nice ever was. The world does not know what to do with these people. We want villains to stay villains or become victims. We want clear categories, good people and bad people, reformed and unreformed. But a healed narcissist exists in the space between. They are not sorry in the way you want them to be. They are not safe in the way you need them to be. They are just, finally, brutally, uncomfortably themselves. And themselves includes both the capacity for profound insight and the capacity for profound harm. The only difference now is they get to choose which one they use. And that choice, that constant, deliberate choice, is what healing actually looks like. Not the absence of fangs. Just the decision not to bite.